I was actually a school teacher, almost 30 years old, had remarried and was living my best life. And someone brought meth into my home, and I didn't say no. As much as I hated it, I was addicted. So that started me on a path of just destruction and losing everything that I knew and loved in about 8 months. I stayed in and out of addiction, active addiction, for about 15 years. Yeah. This last time, the last time that I was out there in active addiction, it was really bad. I found myself stuck in a place that in my right mind, I knew I didn't need to be, but my addiction was so strong and so powerful that I kept going back there. That led me into facing some hefty charges that put me in jail in a situation where there was no bond to be set. There was no, yeah. So I was sat down, and it was during that time that I knew that I had to do something different, and that's what led me on this path of recovery. Someone told a story one time that I can really relate to. It's about kind of becoming a cooked frog. It happened quickly but slowly at the same time. So it's like if you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, it'll jump out, right? But if you put it in that water and you slowly heat it up, you get a cooked frog. And I became a cooked frog. Yeah, couldn't get out. Well, I took a leave of absence from my job as a school teacher. My parents didn't trust me. My ex-husband didn't trust me. My kids were taken from my home. I never lost rights, but I lost discretion. So for years, that's the worst thing that has ever happened as a result of my addiction and the choices that I was making. It's been a long road, it's been a long road, but I have two wonderful grown kids and three grandkids. They have loved me throughout, and they've seen me go from really struggling to being a light in the dark for people who are out there in active addiction. Yeah, it was like taking my arms, I need these guys. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop using. I knew that I didn't want to live a life without my kids, but I was so far down in my addiction, I just self-destructed. I would go through, so for about 15 years, I would have a pattern of using for about 8 or 9 months, losing everything. I would go off to a treatment or rehab or jail, get myself together, do great for about a year and a half, and then go back down that path, So it was a vicious cycle for me and for everyone that I love, So my drug of choice was pretty much whatever, towards the end. There were a couple of times that I received drugs that were, like hindsight, they were laced with fentanyl. And just by the grace of God, I survived that. I can remember waking up from days of just being knocked out or whatnot. But my experience is that in the past, I would say the past 5 years. So I've been in, let me go back and say this. I've been in long-term recovery for 3 years and 9 months. Okay, so my pathway my journey this time started while I was incarcerated. But my drug use, the year and a half before, was a little different because fentanyl entered. It seemed like it entered the scene. So people started dying all around me. People who were using meth were dying. People who were using opioids, getting a pill, were dying. People who were using heroin were dying because these things were laced with fentanyl. So I grew up here in Whitesburg, Georgia. I was raised by two school teachers. My dad coached. My mom was a teacher, was a hospital homebound teacher, great people. I'm the fifth of six kids. My choices and my addiction has nothing to do with the way that I was raised. I was raised right, you know. At 19, I joined the Marine Corps, got out, went to college, had my kids, raised two wonderful kids, was a kindergarten teacher. And because I said yes one time, I became addicted.
Got it.
Yeah. Drugs don't care who you are. Fentanyl does not care who you are. I have a peer that I mentor right now who became addicted because he developed cancer at 17 years old. And he got addicted to opioids. And then here comes the fentanyl and the heroin. It's a vicious cycle.
Right.
This kid was on his way to be a professional golf player. Yeah. So there's no discrimination. There's none. I was just having this conversation with my sister yesterday. Both of her kids are college-age kids, and we were just talking about having that hard talk with your kids because it's scary out there.
Yeah.
You know, you don't just go buy marijuana anymore and feel like, oh, it's just marijuana, because you just don't know right now. So what's the difference in people in recovery now?
Yeah, versus maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
5 or 10 years ago, you know, you could find a 12-step meeting, get in that meeting, and you know, lay a foundation, get a sponsor, work some steps. Those tools are wonderful. Here's an example. The other night, I was leading an AA meeting that we have every Monday night or Wednesday night at my place of work. 3 young women came in who are all fentanyl overdose survivors that are just there, just trying to just holding on. Each girl, when we went around and we just kind of checked in and told our stories and how we got here, had been left for dead, or had been revived with Narcan, or had a story of losing their best friend, losing their mom, getting out of jail and being afraid to ask how so-and-so's doing because they had overdosed and died by using fentanyl. It is a very big problem. It is a real problem.
And
My heart, just like, there's a really soft place in my heart for the girls and guys that come in and they're, you know, their drug of choice is opioids or fentanyl or heroin. I do have a special place for all of them, but it just touches a place in my heart because I just look at them and I tell them all, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to die, you know. And then I tell them about the fentanyl, and that's harm reduction, you know, or about the Narcan for the fentanyl, you know, as harm reduction. And I send them, we keep boxes of it out on the front porch at Your Haven in Buchanan. Come get it, no questions asked. Please take a box, take one for your friend, you know, that kind of thing. I would say look for any change in behavior, change in appearance. For me, I would shut down. I would isolate. That's a big thing. If your child starts isolating, staying in their room, sleeping a lot, or you know, moments of just, you know, high energy, just changes in behavior. Sit down with your kids, know your kids, ask those questions, check in with your kid every day. How are you doing? What's going on with you?
continue on. What was that like for you?
In the beginning, I would stay away. They were wrong, I was right, everybody's crazy, I'm not doing anything, that kind of thing. I was in denial. Towards the end, I really wanted to be better. I really still wanted to be present in my family's lives. So my mom and I, before she passed, we improved our relationship. She knew that I was struggling. I would come to her house pretty much every day. She was dying with cancer right before I became incarcerated. I would come here and we would just talk, and she would say, "I just want you to get straightened out." And kind of the beauty in my story, in my recovery story, is that about 2 days before I got locked up, I prayed to God, God, whatever it takes, just help me, and that's what it took. And so during the first 6 months of my incarceration, it was during COVID, so nobody was coming in the jail, nobody was going out really. My mom and I talked every day on that phone, and she would say every day, when you get out, I want you to go to your haven. That's where I work now. And she said, I just want you to get straightened out. And I'd say, okay, mama. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just started talking, the biggest thing, here's what I've learned in my job and in my experience, and is that connection is the opposite of addiction. Talk about it. I think I shared with you earlier that this morning I opened my Bible that someone gave me while I was incarcerated, and I just opened it to Ecclesiastes, and it said, there's a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to be silent, and a time to speak, and this is the time to speak. I've learned that speaking out about my recovery is saving lives. So as a parent, talk to your child. Even if it gets on their nerves, talk to them, because connection is how we're going to break this thing. Speaking out about it is how people are going to get better. I used to hide from my addiction. There was so much shame and stigma. And like, for me, stigma is just a nice word for hate and prejudice, Addiction doesn't care who you are. It will come and get you like a thief in the night. And so we have to be educated, and we have to talk about it. And the cool thing is that today I get to say people do recover. I'm living proof. But I couldn't have recovered, and I couldn't have gotten to this place without learning how to talk about it. That's my superpower. So it's hard to pinpoint an exact day. It was developing a really strong relationship with God. For me, I had to believe in something, just becoming a walking prayer, and then developing a plan of action of what am I going to do different when I get out of jail. So when I got out, because of the connections I had made when I got out, by the time that I got out, Your Haven was actually a real place. It was just in the works when I went in. So my cousin, who was a CPSAD, was like, you're going to come up here at least once a week to a meeting. That was the game changer. So I would drive to Buchanan at least once a week for one meeting. And then she would say, everybody needs an encourager, So she was my encourager. Now I have many. But she would say, you're gonna go and get your certification, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm good staying at home with Daddy, So I kept my word of one meeting a week. That's making that connection. Then she said, now let's recover out loud. She said, that's how I do it. That's how I stay clean and sober, is I'd tell other people how to do it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting on Facebook saying that. But something changed. That was the game changer right there. Yeah. I started saying, hey, look, if I can do it, you can do it. You don't have to die in silence. Yeah. And so also, I have to mention this. This was another big part of me just making that turn, that full about face. I have a friend who's a mentor of mine. We grew up together, Corey Crowder. He played in the NBA back in the 90s for Utah Jazz. Anyway, we've remained friends through the years, and he called me out of the blue. He said, hey, I see what you're doing on your Facebook with the recovery thing. He said, but I want you to do something. He said, you're loving everybody else. He said, I want you to learn how to love yourself. And I was like, oh, I love myself. And he said, okay. He said, look, here's the thing. Before you pee, before you brush your teeth, before you eat any food or take your dog for a walk, get in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you, Shea Holland. And I was like, okay, you know, so.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, I'm serious. He said, just try it. Try it for 7 days. He said, about 7 days, you kind of start creating a habit. I think it was 21 days, it becomes a daily routine.
Right.
And he said, and then 90 days, it becomes a lifestyle. And I was like, okay, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what, I get in front of that mirror every day and I say, I love you, Shea Holland. And even if it just makes me laugh, at least if I can find humor in whatever it is that I'm feeling or going through, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But I love myself.
Yeah.
I love myself today. And that, all those years, I was loving everybody else and not loving myself, and I was self-destructing. So that's it.
That's the key. Love.
That's it. Yeah.
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 That is the key.
So Your Haven is an RCO, which is a recovery community organization. It's a nonprofit. I work there as the peer navigator, and what that means is that you can come in off the street, sit down with me. If you want recovery, if you want to try out a new way to live and you don't know how to do it, we can sit down and figure out your pathway. There's another lady, Alicia Beck. She's the assistant director. She is a CPSAD like I am. She's also a forensic peer mentor, which means that she uses her lived experience from being incarcerated. So anyway, anyone can come into Your Haven. Hours of operation are normal working hours. We have recovery meetings all week long. So if you go to yourhavenrecovery.com or look us up on Facebook, and you can find all that. We just try to meet people where they're at. We try to provide education for parents, for loved ones. We have all recovery on Saturdays, which supports all pathways to recovery. We go in the jail in Harrowing County and teach reentry program.
Okay.
Go in there and shine a light in the dark for those that are incarcerated. And just tell them, as long as you don't put drugs or alcohol on whatever problems you're facing, your worst days are behind you, and you can do whatever you want when you get out, and we'll help you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
On your life, no matter what you're facing or how powerful your addiction is. I'm a person who did not know how to stop using, but by the grace of God and by just being open to learning from other people that have done it before me, there is hope. You don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom. The elevator stops on every floor, and you can get off at any time. Yeah, just that, life's not over for me, despite everything I've been through and despite what I still may have to face. I just know that there's a lot of good ahead of me, and just don't give up. The best is yet to come. Thank God my kids don't suffer from substance misuse disorder, but they have suffered because of my addictive behaviors. But they're thriving, and we talk about it, and we keep that open line of communication, and they are so supportive. Because I do it out loud now, and I don't hide, we can talk about all of that. They cheer me on. Yeah. Well, it was a process, For me, what happened is, she said, why don't you get in our photo every meeting? She said, you don't have to. She said, but our belief is that recovering out loud could encourage someone else. And so she would take this picture after our meeting and post it on Facebook. I was like, oh, okay, don't tag me. Okay, but then someone saw me, sent a message and said, hey, I'm so proud of you. I know what you went through. I want to live a better life too. How do I do it? And I was like, oh, okay, I hear you. I hear you. So that started happening every Saturday that she would post that picture. And then I was like, hey, you know what? You can tag me. Hey, you know what? I'll answer these messages. And then I was like, maybe I do need to get my certification. Maybe there's something to this. It was so empowering. It was like, God said, if you don't do this, everything you went through was for nothing. if you don't give back your recovery and show other people how to do it, everything you went through was for nothing. Yeah.